In case you missed it, I wrote a book. It's there. So, ciao! Welcome back to my channel, and today what I'm going to do, I'm going to answer one of the most asked questions of this last week's, which is, how did you write a book in 6 weeks? The reason why I'm going to answer this question is not because it's very interesting to know how I wrote a book, but because I know that there's a lot of people that are interested in writing a book and actually never get to publish it or never even get to start it. And I believe that the process that I went through in order to write it can help other people that want to do the same and become authors as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain the actual steps that I took. And some of those steps will be more technical, so what are the actions that you need to take if you want to publish a book. Others will be more related to the kind of mindset that you need to have, because it is a project. It is a big project that requires some time. And as every bigger project, it's not enough to say, oh, I'm writing a book, but we need to put down our effort and sit down and work. So I'm going to show you how to do both. Let's start with the first step. First step, of course, as usual, is to have the big idea. And that's something that is very interesting as a concept, because there are people that want to write a book, but they don't know about what yet. And on the other hand, there are people that have a great idea, but they don't know how to write the book. So the idea needs to be there. And what can it be? Now, I'm going to talk about non-fiction books, because I think the fiction books have a lot more entanglement and things that you need to take care of, and I haven't written one yet, so once I do, I'll post another video. For now, I'll talk about non-fiction books. And in my case, the thing was that I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about, and that was the topic that I'm an expert at, which is advanced learning techniques. However, what I wasn't sure about was how to talk about it in a way that wouldn't be too boring, because it's not the most exciting topic unless you are of the subject, or unless you find a way to make it exciting in the book. And so my focus was, okay, how can I make it so that it is interesting, that's fascinating, even if you don't want to put too much effort, you can still get a lot out of it, and so on. So that was my case. But I know that, for example, for some other people, the problem is finding an idea. So what can you do? You can think about your passions, you can think about what you are an expert at, you can think about your personal story. Everyone has different ways of writing a book and different meanings and reasons to write a book. So for me, it was business. So I wanted it to be related to my business, Genius in 21 Days. And so I knew the topic. If you don't know the topic, the first step will be start thinking about your passions, start thinking about topics that you know a lot about, because it's going to be a journey with the book that will take you to be very close with the subject, very close to with the topic. You will need to research, you will need to read about it, so don't find something that you're completely not passionate about, otherwise you already know that the book will not get done. So step number 1, find your idea. Step number 2, what you need to do is to decide. Now this seems very easy to say, and it is easy to say, it's much harder to do it. I know so many people that tell me, now that I've published a book, I'm also writing a book, I've been writing a book for 2 years, I've been writing a book for a year, I have this perfect idea for a book, but I can't seem to be able to sit down and just decide to do it. Now, for me, it happened in it was a conjunction of things. One was, and the biggest, the trigger, was that one day I was talking with my brother, and I had in my mind, okay, I want to write a book, I need to write a book, should I write a book? And one day, my brother was like, Giulia, I saw your PDF that you give for free to potential clients about 11 tips to improve your learning method. Why don't you expand that a little bit, just to have a bit more written in it, a few more pages? And I was like, why not? And I started writing, but as I started looking at the PDF, I thought, wow, I could actually expand in this way, in this way, in this way, in this way. And I was like, okay, now I must write the book. And at that point, it was decided for me. So I decided that it was my time. And you decided in the moment in which you burn your ship. This expression, burn your ships, comes from an anecdote that some people say it was Hernan Cortes, others talk about Alexander the Great. It doesn't matter, but there was this conqueror that was about to conquer a new place, but it was a place where all the people that lived in there were very, very feisty, and so any other person before him had struggled and they had lost, and they hadn't been able to. So one day he wakes up and he notices that the nose of the ships is facing not the shore but the sea. And he looks at his people, and his people were very proud. They were like, oh yeah, we had this great idea, given that here people are so bellicose. You know what? We are ready. So in case things are getting bad, you know what we will do? Our ships are already ready to leave, and so we can be safe. And Hernan Cortes looked at them and said, that's why you did it. Yeah. You know what? Burn the ships. And said, why? Said, because either we win or we die. There's no halfway through here. And guess what happened? They won. Why this? Because in the moment in which we burn the ships, we have no way out. We choose that we're going to do it and we're going to get to the end. But it's something that you need to feel inside. So in the moment in which you tell yourself, okay, I want to write a book, ask yourself, have I decided? Have I given myself no other option? There are tangible things that you can do, like talking with an editor already and say, listen, in that date I will need your services. Or at times it's more internal and you just know that now is the time, like it was for me. But once you have decided, step 3, you must plan it. Planning it is so fundamental because, for example, I run a business and I work very hard because I'm very, very in love with what I do. And writing a book for me became one extra thing that I wanted to do besides everything else, without giving up on anything else. So the only possible way to make it a reality was to take my plan, put it in my diary, calendarize it, and make sure that I would stick to my plan. So what do you need to do when you plan it? I had, first of all, some blocks of times every day that I would spend on my book. There were some days in which I could spend 4 hours, others in which I couldn't find more than 1 hour. Doesn't matter, but every day I had a little bit that I would invest in my book, so that I knew that that was like a whole new category in my plan, but that I had to do it. The other thing that I started to do in terms of planning was to set myself some micro goals. So when I started writing, I didn't know that it would take me 6 weeks. And I wouldn't suggest you to give yourself a deadline such as an exact amount of time, because you want to do it well. So I didn't know how long it would take. What I knew is that as I was starting a new part, I would give myself a goal for that part. So this week I want to finish this aspect. This week I want to finish that aspect. But that comes as you write it, okay? So give yourself some micro goals, but don't give yourself the huge final goal unless it's the only way you have to burn your ships. Step 4. Once you've decided that your calendar is full, there are moments and so on, the first step is to understand the structure of your book. How do you want to structure the ideas that you have in your mind? For me, given that I teach advanced learning techniques, I used mind maps, and that was super effective for me because it allowed me to brainstorm, keep a general idea, global view, but at the same time, as I was going ahead, focus on more details. But everyone can use a different way, but you do need to think about a general structure that you want to give it. And my guide question was, what will make it simpler for the user and pleasant for the user? So while I was writing, I had a lot of the ideas that are making now Genius by Choice very different from other books. So some people, if you look at the reviews, a lot of people are commenting on the structure of the book that they appreciated and loved. And that makes me very, very happy because as I was writing, my first concern was, okay, what will make the experience pleasant and useful for the user? Remember that when you have an idea in your mind, you see it in a certain way. But I think that the true ability of an author is to be able to put it on paper in a way that the reader will enjoy, the reader will find helpful. So that was my guide question. And when you think about the structure, it's not like, oh, let me just write, but okay, what will make it simple for them? And think about it, keep it general because as you write, more things will come to mind, and so you will need to adjust it. So don't be too strict, but you do need to start with an idea of how you want it to be at the end. So you start from the global picture, and then you start getting into detail chapter by chapter by chapter. At this point, everything sounds amazing, but we haven't really tackled the problem that most aspiring authors have, which is that there's a moment when you write in which you get stuck. And, or at least, not always, but there may be. And I was lucky enough, and I was very, very focused, that it didn't happen that I was really stuck. However, there were some parts of the book that I just didn't want to write much. So thinking about writing them, I was like, oh my God. And so I kept postponing them. So initially, given that it's a non-fiction, it's very possible to do it. You can jump from one part to the other. So in order to keep writing and stick to my plan, what I did was that I would write what I felt that I was ready to write, even if it was the last part of the book. It doesn't matter. I feel, okay, today I feel like writing the introduction, and I write it. Or today I feel that I can write a part on memory techniques. Okay, I'll write it. Or today I write about reading faster. It doesn't matter. At a certain point, though, all the parts that you have postponed will be there. So you will need to do something with them. And what I found very effective at that point was to just start writing. You know, like brainstorming style, just writing, or typing, regardless of how it comes out. Knowing that I may need to change those parts probably because they wouldn't be perfect, but just sticking to my hours in my plan. Knowing that, okay, if today I need to do it for 2 hours, I'm going to do it for 2 hours. And to be honest, in the moment in which there are some parts that are a bit more, the ones that you don't want to write, at times there's something else that's more urgent that comes up. It didn't come up when you were writing the interesting part, but all of a sudden everything happens when you're writing the boring parts. So, what did I do? I was like, okay, if something urgent comes up, I'll take care of it, but I'm not going to bed until I do my 2 hours, if that day it was 2 hours, or 3 hours, if that day was 3 hours. So if I have selected an amount of time that I'm going to invest in my book that day, and I selected it in a moment in which I was feeling good, in which I knew what was best for me, I am not going to change it just because I'm not in the mood. I'm going to stay there. I'd rather stay there in front of my computer for 2 hours without writing anything than doing something else. Because I told myself that I will do it. And then of course when you're in front of a computer, no distractions, at a certain point you'll start typing. And so at that point I turned it into goals such as, okay, I want to write X amount of words today. I want to get to 30,000 words. I want to get to 40,000 words. I want to get to 60,000 words. And it became a goal, it became a game. And that helped me to go through also those parts that maybe I wasn't really into initially. Another thing that I did in order to get unstuck when there were some parts that I wasn't convinced about was to read a lot. So I would research, I would see how others explained similar topics. I would really ask myself to research in order to allow my mind to have more ideas. And that's because our mind, creativity, I always define it as linking old dots in a new way. The point is that in order to be creative, you need 2 elements then, the dots and the new way. The dots means the knowledge. What do you know about the topic? The more things you know about the topic, the more likely you are to come up with new ideas. And new ideas come in the moment in which you are light, in the moment in which you are not stressing out, in the moment in which you allow your mind to be more creative and you are in that creative state. So I researched a lot, and I relaxed so that new ideas could come. And that's the other thing that I would do if I was getting stuck. There's one more thing that I had to fight with, that, not just for the book, actually my whole life, that I'm a bit of a perfectionist, okay? I've been working on it, I have improved a lot, but for my first book, of course, my first tendency was to be a perfectionist. And that doesn't work with books. Okay, if you want to write a book, being a perfectionist is really against you. Now, one thing is wanting to write well, one thing is wanting to give a good message, one thing is wanting to research and improve it, and so on. But you cannot afford to be a perfectionist. Why? Because there will always be something that can be improved. There will always something extra that you can add. There will always be something that you can remove. There's always something that you can explain in a better way, an extra exercise, an extra sentence. There's always something. If you enter into the perfectionism model, you are never going to get published. What you need to do is to accept that there may be something that's not perfect, but enjoy. Give your best, of course, but then enjoy the fact that you are taking the steps that you want and get to a level that's good enough. So good enough is not perfect. Never chase perfect, because when you chase perfect, it never comes. I always say seek perfection, but never expect it. Because yes, we do need to give our best in order to do the best we can, but we can never expect to be perfect. So what you can do for this is to set some deadlines. For example, when I was getting towards the end and I knew that my perfectionism would kick in, what I did was I contacted an editor and I set a date and I told him, listen, I'm going to give you the book by this date. And given that I'm responsible and I had a deadline with this person, I didn't want him to waste the time, precious time, because he was taking my job rather than someone else's. I felt the responsibility of delivering by that date. That's very, very important because it helps you to get over that perfectionist side of you that's never, never helpful. Talking about editors, when I had to find mine, I went on a website that's called Readsy, where you are put in touch with a lot of people that work in the book industry. And in terms of editing, there are 3 kinds of editing that can be done. Number 1 is content editor, second is copy editor, and the third one is proofreader. So, content editor takes care of understanding whether your structure works well. If it is a novel, they will make sure that the plot doesn't have any holes, any problems. If it is a non-fiction book, the same. So maybe you started with a topic and then you didn't close it. So they will just make sure that everything flows. The copy editor instead will work on the structure of the sentences. So making sure that the language that you use represents you, that you can let your voice be heard, and it's very, very nice, and that's the one that I used. And then there's proofreader, and the proofreader is the one that focuses on spotting any typos, any mistakes in the way, for example, things are the punctuation, words, and stuff like that. So I found my editor. At that point, I delivered my book to the editor, and it was time to move on to the production phase. So, how does the production phase work? First of all, while the editor had my manuscript in his hands, what I needed to do was to understand, okay, what title am I going to give it? And what subtitle? And what cover do I want? So, for the cover, what I did was to go to another website that's called 99 Designs. Then I know there's some other ones as well, but I haven't used them, like 100 covers that are good ones. And mine for the cover was super nice, 99 Designs, because it allows you to do what? It allows you to submit your brief, and then there's a contest, and there's a lot of designers that propose their covers according to your brief. And so you shortlist them, you choose, you can ask your friends to vote. Very, very interesting. And so I came up with my cover, and I'm super happy about it because of what it represents. Wait, here it is. Ta-da! So we have the light bulb, we have the book that's shaped like wings, so freedom. And freedom for me is a very important concept for those of you who know me. So that's what I did for the cover. That was very exciting as a part of the book because, I don't know, it just makes it feel more real. And the title as well, you need it because in order to find the cover, you need to know what to write on the cover. And so I remember that I was there one day, and at a certain point I had found a nice title. I was like, Turbocharge Your Learning. And it was like, it gave the idea of power, it gave the idea of speed and fast, and I liked it. But I researched online, and make sure you do that. And I found out that there was already a book with that title. So you can, okay? Copywriting allows you to, but it's not nice if people are looking for yours. Which one should I buy? What should I do? So I didn't choose that one, and I had to start again from zero. And I was like, okay, how can I convey this idea? And what helped me there was to ask people. In the end, I found it with my partner, but the fact that I brainstormed with other people allowed me to write down a lot of concepts that I wanted to have inside. And I wrote down all the images that came to mind, all the concepts, and with my team, we worked there. We had a lot of fun. And then after we stopped the brainstorming, everyone closed the call and so on, all of a sudden I had like, oh my God, that's what I can do. And there was a moment when I pronounced the title out loud, in which I felt that it was my title. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's like there's a moment you just feel it's the right title for you, because it conveys what you want your reader to feel. Then everyone will interpret it in a different way. But for me, the title meant becoming a genius, yes, but you don't need to be born a genius. You can choose to be one. And the concept of choice, given that I love the concept of freedom, as I mentioned, and that was very impactful. And the combination, the fact that it was short, the title needs to be short, because otherwise it's a problem, okay? Now, some of you might be asking themselves, okay, how do you know about all these websites and stuff? I skipped a step that's very important, and I'm going to say it now, which is that I started researching. So when I was about to finish my manuscript, I started researching, because I was like, okay, I know how to write, but once I'm done writing, I have never published a book. What is best? Should I self-publish? Should I look for a publisher? How do I do? And so I started researching online, and I researched, read a lot, and then, I love reading and researching. And then, given that I was researching, the algorithm of Facebook noticed me, and I started being targeted by one ad. And I saw actually only one ad, but I liked it, by one school that's called the Self-Publishing School. And I had already decided to self-publish at that point, because I found that there were so many more advantages for me being my first book, and also being that I wanted to keep the rights to my book. I wanted to feel the freedom to post it and publish it wherever I wanted. So for a series of reasons, I had decided to go for self-publishing. And I saw this ad of Self-Publishing School, and I watched their webinar, I liked it, and so I started working with them. And they helped me a lot in having clarity on all the steps that you need for production. So now I'm going to tell you very briefly what the steps are, but you can find them as well in some of the books that they've published. I'll put the link in the description, and also in the course that they run. So make sure that you get in touch with them, because they were extremely helpful. They're very competent. They help you to get to be an Amazon bestseller, which allows your book, of course, to grow the reach by a lot, okay? And the websites for the covers and so on were suggested by them, and I was very, very grateful. And then once I found my cover, my title, my subtitle, the next step was to format the book. So the editor sent me the manuscript back. It was very fast, online, he respected the deadline, amazing. At that point, there was the formatting. The phase of formatting for me took a bit longer, because of the lockdown, a lot of people have decided to write books, and so the agency that I used took a bit longer compared to usual, but usually it takes from 1 to 2 weeks. And once I received the formatted book, I just had to check it, and then after some back and forth, I finally had my book. At that point, you need to upload it to KDP, so Kindle Direct Publishing. I decided to publish with Amazon, and then I will also put it in some other website like Ingram Spark and so on. But in order to be able to do that, so also post it in other places, you need to make sure that you buy your own ISBN code. And there's a website, I'm going to put it in the description, in which you can buy them in the UK, so that you have your own ISBN code. So it means that you own the rights to your book, and so you can just publish it wherever you want. There's some regulations, just check the rules, but that's what you can do. And at that point, you need to select some keywords and categories, and that's a very important part of the job that allows you to have more visibility. And that's why I think that SPS, so the self-publishing school, was very, very effective and helpful. And that's why I would suggest you to really get in touch with them to understand how to do that part of the job, because it just makes a difference between having written a book and publishing a successful book. And it would be very disappointing to launch a book and then no one knows about it. And when we write, the goal that we have is to make sure that as many people as possible use our book, read our book, and get to receive the message that we wanted to convey in our book. So the marketing aspect of the book is as important as writing a good book. And make sure that you don't underestimate it, because very often you have authors that write and what they write is fantastic, but no one knows, and that's a pity. And so after I put it on KDP, I hit publish and the book was launched, and I felt so blessed from having so many people that helped me out at the beginning to launch the book, to help me get to the bestseller place, and so #1 sales in certain categories, and receive the bestseller badge. And you know, the feeling that you get is wonderful, knowing that I'm receiving reviews of people that are really changed thanks to the things that I wrote. That's extremely fulfilling, and that's what you need to focus on when you're writing, because there will be moments in which you feel down, and there will be moments in which you are stuck, in which you are not sure it's coming as nice as you would like to. There are moments of down, it's a journey. But if you focus on why you want it, if you focus on the difference it will make in people's lives, then it's all worth it. And you are willing to overcome also those moments of down and get to the moment in which you really hit publish and allow the world to get to know about your book. So I tried to be as short as possible, but of course it's not small task given that we're talking about writing a book and publishing a book. But I hope everything is clear. If you have any kind of question, doubt, interesting thing that you would like to know, please just leave a comment below so that I can answer and let you know. And feel free to contact me anywhere. You can find all my details in the description, and in this case I will also leave all the details to get in touch with everyone who has helped me throughout the publishing of this book, because I think that they deserve it and they can be of help for you, future author. So thank you very much, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.